Disney's, Marvel's, Square Enix's, Crystal Dynamics' Avengers game is not really that good, but there is some fun to be had. Red here, and I've played the new Avengers game for over 50 hours now, and I can confidently say that this game will be incredible in about 6 months to a year from now. As you may or may not know, this is a games as a service, essentially a live service game, you know, like Destiny and Anthem and The Division, where you have your daily and weekly rotating objectives, you have your marketplace, you have your vendors, you have your 2 hubs, but I'll go into that in a bit. The story overall is pretty satisfying, but it doesn't really feel like an Avengers game, even though it has 6 different heroes. Now the heroes in this game is Iron Man, the Hulk, Captain America, Black Widow, Thor, and Kamala Khan. Now the character that feels the freshest, the most unique, and is the most fun to play is Kamala Khan, and that is most likely because the rest of the heroes was basically made famous thanks to the MCU, and the rest of the heroes doesn't really feel authentic. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you play as Thor, it kind of feels like you're playing as a cosplayer who's cosplaying as Thor that's just beating up a bunch of robots. And it is very ironic that the Hulk, a character which is essentially just breaking things, when you play in a game where you essentially just beat up robots and break things, is the most boring character to play as. Now the main reason why I say that this does not really feel like an Avengers game is because the story is mostly focused around Kamala Khan. Most of the cinematics is from her perspective, even though there is some character developments of the other Avengers. Most of the story revolves around her, with some Avengers sprinkled in, so the game would have a more fitting title if it was Kamala Khan featuring the Avengers. Now overall the story was fine, but it can be completed in about 8 to 10 hours with a cliffhanger at the end, and once you finish the campaign, then some of the in-game content does open up. You essentially have 2 different hubs, one of them being the helicarrier and one of them being an anthill thanks to Ant-Man, and you have different vendors, different factions, and you can get different objectives, which raises the faction level respectively, you know, just like in Destiny. Also, the menu icons and the cursor feels identical to Destiny, just kind of worse. You know, this game can be actually summed up by being not as good as Destiny was at launch, but not being as bad as Anthem was at launch. It's kinda there in the middle and doesn't really know what it wants to be. It kind of feels like the development of this game, halfway through they decided this is going to be a live service game, and then people had to restructure the whole game, as it has been delayed more than once. And despite that, this game still feels like a late last generation game, early current generation game, and that at the end of the current generation. I mean, PlayStation 5 is launching in a couple of months, and this game just doesn't feel like a current generation game. There is a significant amount of bugs in this game breaking bugs and glitches where people have complained that the campaign resets on them. I have had issues where characters just doesn't show up in cutscenes, just doesn't load in, lip syncing issues, the subtitles is completely off, and it is just one big buggy mess. Now one thing this game does have going for it is that the heroes does play a little bit differently from each other. For example, Iron Man has 3 different weapons he can swap out of, and of course he can fly, where Kamala Khan is stretching, she has her bending abilities, she can jump high, and then of course Black Widow has a staff, she has invisibility, she has a gun, and she has this kind of like slingshot where she can pull herself towards enemies, which she uses hand-to-hand combat. So the heroes does play differently enough, but overall it essentially is just a button mashing game where you grind for your soft cap level only to grind more for your hard cap level, which is essentially different than your actual character level. Now let me explain. Your character level, which has your skill tree and abilities, is a level cap of 50. Now it doesn't really matter which abilities you choose, because at the end of the 50 level cap you have all of the abilities unlocked. So my Thor will be identical than somebody else's Thor, aside from maybe a different skin. Then you have what essentially is your power level, which affects gear, and that has a soft cap of 130. And once you reach the 130 mark, then you have to use upgrade modules to upgrade your gear to 150. So when you reach max rank, your character will be level 50 and your power level will be 150 and your power level will be 150. And unfortunately, there isn't really any raids or real endgame content that makes use of this power level. You have a bunch of shield missions and a bunch of sectors which you can replay over and over and over just to grind your character to that max level, and you have 2 villain sectors which you basically play the same boss over and over and over, much like in Destiny. Speaking of bosses, this game is lacking in bosses because you have Abomination, you fight 2 different mechs, and then you have your end boss. There is a total of 4 bosses in an Avengers game. 4 bosses. That is kind of a joke. Now, the developers did say in some sort of live stream that they are working on a raid kinda like event, which is coming in some sort of update down the line, in addition to free heroes. So we will have heroes as free content in this game, like Hawkeye, as well as Spider-Man. That's only for PlayStation 4. And you have to be max level to play any of those raid missions. And the problem with this game is that you don't really get gear for any of your other heroes. At least in Destiny, you do get gear. If you're a hunter, you can get gear for your Titan, but here if you play as Kamala Khan, you only get gear for Kamala Khan. You cannot get gear for Iron Man or Hulk or Thor. No, once you reach the max level of one hero, you have to grind everything over again with a different hero, and that is very, very annoying. Now, aside from the fact that each hero has basically a battle pass, which you can use real world currency to purchase, or you can play daily objectives, which earns you points towards this battle pass, so you don't really need to pay any money, but it takes a long time. The in-game vendors are so expensive that I don't really want to spend any of my currency earned in-game on anything, because I don't really know when I'm really gonna need it. Buying gear in this game is pretty useless because once you go on a new mission, you get better gear anyway, so there's no real point in buying any gear because you get everything in missions. And speaking of gear in general, I didn't really care about any of the stats because I don't really know what any of it does. So basically, once I get a certain level gear item and I get a better gear item, then I just dismantle that item for resources, which again, I didn't know what those resources does anyway because there's so many resources and none of it really matters at the end of the day. Despite matchmaking still being buggy and a problem, I did play quite a couple of online matches. But again, once I play a villain sector, say for example I play against Taskmaster, then it just comes down to all 4 heroes because you have a strike team of max 4 players. You just have all 4 heroes just mashing that villain in the corner over and over and over until it's dead. There's no real incentive or no real story behind it. It's just playing it over and over and over for better gear, grinding to that max level, because once the raid drops, then you want to be that max level so you can play it. So essentially this is just one big grindy game, and it's not really what I expected at all. I honestly feel that this game could have used with another delay, maybe possibly a year delay, for them to really polish it up, add a lot of contents, because once you're in the helicarrier, you have your one vendor that's on all the other side of the helicarrier, and you have to walk or run there to get to him, and then you have to run back to the mission table, which is, it takes a lot of time and it's just really annoying. But getting there and back, I see a lot of open spaces, and I wonder why is there so much open space in these vendors or in these areas. And it makes me realize that the reason they put it there is because of content that they want to release in the future. So essentially they released this shell of a game for stuff they want to do. And it's sad to say, but it just seems that this is the games as a service model going forward. People release this idea to the public and saying, you know, there will be great content in the future. I mean, at least Destiny launched with a raid or two. I believe it was 1 or 2 raids when it came out. This game launched And right before the game launched, there was a War Table Live event by the developers, and they said that there is this raid-like event that's going to come out later on in the year. So it's like you buy this game and it's like of the promise of what's to come. And I guess in a way, you know, if developers have this roadmap, it's fine, but then they must release a lot of content on the game itself. So I don't want to buy a game and then have this empty shell of a game with content to be filled in later on. No, I want to buy a game and be like, you know, this is a satisfying experience. And overall, was I satisfied with this experience? No, not really. I felt unsatisfied and I felt annoyed by all of the game-breaking bugs. I mean, I played quite a few of online events, and right before the end, right before I get to the boss, the game just crashes, or the game boots me back to the main menu of the game, and I'm just like, I just spent 10-15 minutes playing, getting gear, yes, but I didn't get that boss gear, I didn't get that end gear, and it's just a really frustrating game, and it just doesn't play well. And overall, if you want to buy this game, then I would say, you know, wait for this game. And as you might have seen on my channel, I really wanted to like this game a lot. I did a lot of content leading up to launch of this game, and I'm just really let down by this game, and I just feel that I don't really want to play it anymore. I don't want to play more of this game. A lot of the stuff that I did in this game, I looked up videos and stuff on the internet on how you can exploit stuff, how you can grind faster, because I didn't want to sit through that long grind to get to the max level. And once you get there, it's like, okay, now I'm done with this hero, moving on to the next one to do the grind over again. But overall, I'd say that if you were a fan of the Avengers, then you might want to wait for a sale, as if I'd had to give a score on this, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. Unfortunately, this isn't the Avengers game that we wanted, but hopefully Square Enix can assemble enough content in the future to make this a worthwhile title. I'd like to thank Square Enix and Prima Interactive for providing me with the review key on this game, and for more gaming content, check out the rest of my channel. If you enjoyed this video, then give me a thumbs up. If you dislike it, then give me a thumbs down, but please tell me why so I can improve my videos. My name is Frank, I'm the RedTieGuy, and frankly, thank you for watching. Catch you guys in the next video.